Good evening, Philippines and the world. Today is Friday, February 28, 2020. Join us for the next 45 minutes as we deliver today's top stories around the globe. I'm Angelo Castro III.
We are also seen in 1,935 satellite monitoring centers nationwide and live via streaming worldwide through UNTV News and Rescue Facebook account and UNTVweb.com. I am William Theo.
And here are the headlines.
The world prepares for a coronavirus pandemic as hopes to contain the virus in China vanishes. 5 Filipino repatriates from Japan show symptoms of the coronavirus disease 2019. Philippine Coast Guard authorities detain a foreign vessel in La Union for violating coronavirus quarantine rules. PNP nabs Bacolod CIDG chief for allegedly soliciting protection money from a KTV bar owner. President Rodrigo Duterte formally prohibits vaping in public places. And big-time oil price rollback set next week.
That the coronavirus would be contained to China have vanished as countries on 3 continents reported their first cases of the infection.
And as the world is preparing for a pandemic of the disease, investors dumped equities in expectation of a global recession. Here's Beverly Saison to tell us why.
Share prices were on track for the worst week since the global financial crisis in 2008, as virus-related disruptions to international travel and supply chains fueled fears of recession in the United States and the Eurozone. The U.S. stock market fell into correction territory with the benchmark S&P 500 index down more than 4% on Thursday, extending a market rout that has now sliced more than 10% off of its closing peak on February 19. Asian stocks on Friday tracked Wall Street's plunge.
There's a lot of fear out there, and potentially there's some pressure politically. And if you look at the implied probability for 1, 2, or 3 rate cuts, it's increased meaningfully over the past 6 days. What the market is saying is we don't know. And the situation is absolutely fluid, so.
Mainland China, where the virus originated last year, reported 327 new cases on Friday, the lowest since January 23. But with new infections reported around the world now surpassing those in China, World Health Organization WHO Director General Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus, nations should prepare.
This virus has pandemic potential. This is not a time for fear. This is a time for taking action now to prevent infections and save lives now.
Latest tally showed about 10 countries reported their first virus cases in past 24 hours, including Nigeria, the most populous country in Africa, and the first case in sub-Saharan Africa. Ratings agency Moody's said a coronavirus pandemic would trigger global and U.S. recessions in the first half of the year. In addition to stockpiling medical supplies, government ordered schools shut and canceled big gatherings, including sports events, to try to halt the spread of the flu-like disease known as COVID-19. U.S. President Donald Trump's administration was considering invoking special powers to rapidly expand U.S. productions of protective gear, two officials said. In Europe, France's number of reported cases doubled. Germany warned of an impending epidemic, and Greece, a gateway for refugees from the Middle East, announced tighter border controls. Tedros said that Iran, Italy, and South Korea were at a decisive point in their efforts to prevent a wider outbreak. Beverly Saison, UNTV News and Rescue.
Costs are growing for parents in Japan and Hong Kong with schools shut down until April because of the coronavirus. Schools are facing pressure to refund fees as children are forced to stay at home. On Thursday, Japan joined Hong Kong in shutting down schools in a stepped-up effort to stem the spread of the virus. Schools in Japan are shut until April 8, while in Hong Kong, they will remain closed until at least the 20th of April. Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe said the next 2 weeks are critical to control the spread of the virus and stem the risk of many children and teachers becoming infected through gathering for long hours every day.
There will be many challenges. If children in lower grades of elementary school have to stay at home due to school closures, then mothers and fathers will have to take time off from work. If parents who work part-time need to take time off, their income during that period might decrease. The government is thinking about the measures we can take for these situations.
Offices and businesses in both Hong Kong and Japan have asked many employees to work from home, but parents have found working from home and balancing online classes for their children difficult. Singapore and South Korea have so far kept schools open, using extensive screening, checking temperatures, and requiring parents to test children at home. 5 Filipino repatriates from Japan quarantined in New Clark City have shown symptoms of COVID-19. But the Department of Health says no changes will be made in the guidelines being implemented in the quarantine facility. Dante Amento tells us why.
The Department of Health has recorded 5 patients under investigation or PUI in the quarantine facility in the New Clark City Sports Hub. They are among the more than 400 Filipino repatriates from Diamond Princess cruise ship in Japan. The PUI showed signs and symptoms of COVID-19, such as cough and sore throat. According to DOH Secretary Francisco Duque III, the PUIs are now being isolated. The health chief adds 2 of the PUIs have tested negative for the virus based on the most recent test. The health department clarifies if anyone among the repatriates from Japan is found positive for COVID-19, it won't be considered as local transmission.
Remember, the origin or the derivation of the repatriates is the ship, the MV Diamond Princess cruise. I believe this has to be considered as an important case.
Despite this development, there will be no changes with the protocols being implemented in the quarantine facility. Current guidelines include body temperature check, 1 person per room accommodation, and admission of possible PUI in hospital.
Wala. Ganun din naman yun. Dahil nung unang Wuhan na repatriates natin, nagkaroon tayo ng 2, nagkaroon ng diarrhea, nagkaroon ng fever, lahat dinala for testing. So, pretty much still the same. No change in our protocols and in our guidelines.
The DOH explains why there are persons under monitoring or PUM that turned out negative during the first test but were found positive for the virus after several days. According to Secretary Duque, this is caused by sliding exposure, which means the time an individual got exposed to patient who shows symptoms is not the same with that of others. And because of this, the time of detection of the virus or symptoms depends on the time of exposure. Several cases happened in Japan after allowing some individuals to disembark from the cruise ship, but upon reaching their destination were found positive.
In other words, hindi naman lahat sila na-expose at the same time. May na-expose on day 1, okay? May na-expose on day 2, may na-expose on day 3, 4, hanggang 14 days. Diba, naandun sila. So, ang tawag mo ng sliding exposure. So, pwede, sa una, negative, tapos eventually naging positive.
Dante Amento, UNTV, News and Rescue, City of Manila.
A foreign ship that entered the Philippine waters undetected is now under probe and detained by the Philippine Coast Guard in La Union Province. Joan Nano details why.
Philippine Coast Guard Commandant Admiral Joel Garcia has ordered an investigation on Panama flag cargo vessel MV Harmony 6 after the ship's captain declared false information about the details of their port clearance. This incident comes amid stricter maritime security measures against the spread of the coronavirus disease 2019. Based on the PCG's initial report, MV Harmony 6 arrived in Changzhou, China on February 13 and departed 5 days later, February 18. The PCG report also indicates that the ship's automatic identification system was allegedly turned off from February 19 until it arrived in the Philippine territory last Sunday, February 23, which prevented the ship from being tracked in real time. But its captain, Vietnamese national Captain Lu Van Loy, declared that MV Harmony 6 left China on February 10 instead of February 18 to fit into the 14-day quarantine period being strictly implemented in all major ports in the country, the PCG said. A team from the Bureau of Quarantine has boarded the vessel to conduct a health inspection among its crew. On board the ship are 18 Vietnamese and 5 Indian crew members. The marine vessel is now anchored at Porto Point in La Union and temporarily detained under orders of the PCG commandant while a probe is underway. The PCG will coordinate with the Bureau of Quarantine to identify possible criminal charges against MV Harmony 6 once violations are found. Joan Nano, UNTV News and Rescue.
Meanwhile, the Philippine government has imposed several travel restrictions as of late. Find out what factors are taken into consideration by the Philippine authorities in imposing travel ban amid the COVID-19 outbreak, as Rosalie Cos reports.
Antarctica is the only continent in the world with no reported confirmed case of the coronavirus disease 2019 as of today. But elsewhere in the world, almost every day, a country is added to the list of territories with reported COVID-19 cases. Amid the coronavirus outbreak, the Philippines declared a travel ban on China, Hong Kong, and Macau on January 31, 2020. The country also initially implemented travel restrictions on Taiwan, which was lifted on February 14, 2020, after the threat made by Taipei and the appeal of overseas Filipino workers in the neighboring state. And on Wednesday this week, the Philippine government announced a ban on travelers coming from North Gyeongsang Province, South Korea, where Daegu City and Cheongdo County are located, as the number of confirmed COVID-19 cases from the areas continues to rise. But what factors do Philippine authorities consider in declaring a travel ban? The exposure risk of Filipinos in a certain country with a high number of COVID-19 cases is one factor, says the Interagency Task Force or IATF for the Management of Emerging Infectious Diseases. Another is the health protocol being implemented by a nation to prevent the spread of COVID-19.
Ginamit natin itong mga metrics na ito katulad ng volume of travelers coming to Manila, coming from that country. Pangalawa, of course, yung burden ng infection sa kanila. Pangatlo, yung risk of exposures. Kailangan natin ma-consider din yon. Pang-apat, ginamit din natin yung stringent protocols ng isang bansa.
If makita naman natin na maganda naman yung sistema at malaki yung assurance na hindi magkahawaan, then that we'll still have that comfort level. But if the comfort level is broken, or we feel that there is a potential danger to public health dito sa ating bansa, then we'll have to make a decision.
The government also considers the recommendations of the World Health Organization or WHO. But based on the statement of World Travel and Tourism Council President and CEO Gloria Guevara, governments must not close borders, impose blanket travel bans, and implement extreme measures. The World Travel and Tourism Council represents the travel and tourism private sector globally. Guevara says that imposing travel restrictions is not an answer to stopping the spread of coronavirus. The council urges governments to explore fact-based measures which don't affect the vast majority of people and businesses. President Rodrigo Duterte himself does not subscribe to massive travel bans on countries with confirmed COVID-19 cases.
There cannot be a total travel ban and you do not allow anybody to enter you are going to lock down the entire Philippines for that. It ain't that way. And for those who are healthy, they should come in. And for those who have been identified from other countries, then that is the time that we can raise the objection of his entry.
Rosa Licoz, UNTV News and Rescue.
The Filipino crew members of the Diamond Princess cruise ship who might decide to stay in the Philippines and discontinue working for the cruise liner may expect help from their manning agency. Harleen Delgado explains why.
The Department of Health and even some Japanese government officials admit there may have been lapses in the implementation of quarantine protocols on the MV Diamond Princess cruise ship of the waters of Yokohama, Japan. Health Secretary Francisco Duque III has earlier explained that such flaws included the continued service for the passengers and maintaining the ship operations despite the risk of infection. The Philippine Overseas Employment Administration, or PUIA, clarifies it has earlier notified manning agencies to ensure that the crew members would be protected from the COVID-19 threat. However, the cruise ship had to adhere to the quarantine protocol ordered by the Japanese government.
They were left with no choice but to follow the Japanese government's directive. So yun yung protocol na sinunod nila, kinakailangan sundin din ng mga seafarers natin. Although yung manning agencies are very much worried already at that time.
The Overseas Workers Welfare Administration says once the more than 400 repatriates from Japan completes the 14-day quarantine, they will be issued a certificate of completion of quarantine. That certificate is a requirement to avail the 10,000 pesos financial aid and transportation assistance. A livelihood grant worth 20,000 pesos will also be given to those who will decide to stay permanently in the Philippines. The POEA adds Magsaysay Maritime Corporation has vowed to help in finding new employment for the affected Filipino seafarers. The manning agency also assures to give financial assistance equivalent to their 2-month salary. The POEA also vows to help the Filipino crew members and their families should they wish to file complaints once the alleged flawed protocol in the cruise ship is proved.
Kung pag-uusapan po yung redress of their grievances, no, hindi natin maalis nga naman na na-expose po sila doon sa environment na yun, which is probably against their will. Yung iba sa kanila gusto na talaga umuwi, kaya lang because of the directive coming from the Japanese government, hindi nila magawang umalis. Tsaka siyempre baka considered abandonment ang kanilang trabaho yun.
The Trade Union Congress of the Philippines, for its part, also expresses dismay over the issue. TUCP spokesperson Alan Tanhusay says they plan to submit a letter to the International Transport Federation to act on the allegations that involve the cruise ship.
Forced labor, discrimination, racism, yung mga ganong issue. Kasi ang pagkaalam namin the whole time, meron third party na nagluluto, nagsisilbi, naglilinis. Yung pala, mga Filipino at mga Indian crew din pala. So hindi tama ito para sa amin.
Harleen Delgado, UNTV News and Rescue, Mandaluyong City.
Now let's get the latest tally of the coronavirus cases around the world. The viral outbreak that began in China has infected 83,389 people globally in 57 countries. Still, the overwhelming majority of cases of the infection are in mainland China, which has reported 78,824 cases and 2,788 deaths. South Korea is still second to the most confirmed cases outside China, with a total of 2,022 cases and 13 fatalities. Japan has now 919 cases, including 705 from the Diamond Princess cruise ship, 8 deaths. And in Italy, there are 655 confirmed cases, 17 deaths. And in Iran, with 270 cases and 26 fatalities, the highest next to China. Meanwhile, in the Philippines, out of the cumulative total of 621 persons under investigation or PUIs for possible COVID-19, only 30 were still admitted at medical facilities. Meanwhile, the number of discharged PUIs is at 588. The total number of confirmed cases in the country remains at 3. Welcome back. A big-time oil price hike is seen next week, including LPG. Meanwhile, Grab Philippines warns of difficult ride booking and high fares in the coming months. Joanne Nano tells us why.
Philippines have canceled their flights to several destinations due to the coronavirus disease outbreak. A big decrease in the demand for oil in the world market has been seen, resulting in a big-time oil price rollback effective next week. Based on advisories from oil industry players, diesel prices will decrease from around 1 peso and 50 centavos to 1 peso and 80 centavos per liter, while gasoline prices are expected to go down by 1 peso and 20 centavos to 1 peso and 50 centavos per liter. According to the Department of Energy, because of the huge decline in the demand for oil, the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries or OPEC will cut their production by 1 million barrels per day beginning next month. This may result in an oil price hike in the coming months.
Bumabalanse naman po yun yung pagbawas ng supply dahil sa plano ng OPEC member countries but its allies na by March magdadagdagan yung production cut.
A possible price reduction of liquefied petroleum gas or LPG is also seen on March 1. Based on the advisory from the Liquefied Petroleum Gas Marketers Association or LPGMA, LPG prices may decrease by around 2 to 4 pesos per kilogram. Meanwhile, ride-hailing service Grab Philippines has warned the public of the possibility to experience difficulty in ride booking as well as higher fares next month. According to Grab Philippines President Brian Koo, around 2,000 of their drivers have left the platform since December last year. The limited number of drivers may result in higher fares.
The dynamic pricing would really kick in pag may mismatch in demand and supply na kung saan magsusurge ulit ang prices natin.
Grab PH is urging the Land Transportation Franchising and Regulatory Board to open up the remaining slots for transport network vehicle applicants so that new drivers could apply to meet the passenger demand. Joanna Aro, UNTV News and Rescue, Makati City.
The Philippine National Police arrests one of their own in Bacolod City. This after a complaint made by a local KTV bar owner. Vincent Arboleda reports why.
The PNP Integrity Monitoring and Enforcement Group arrested Bacolod Criminal Investigation and Detection Group Chief Police Major Melvin Madrona for alleged extortion. Madrona was nabbed together with his civilian cohort, identified as J.R. De La Cruz, in an entrapment operation in a cockpit arena at Hacienda Guanzon, Barangay Mansilingan, Bacolod City. The arrest was done after Madrona received the 5,000 pesos marked money from the complainant. IMEG spokesperson Police Captain May Ancunanan said the owner of a local KTV bar sought IMEG's assistance after reporting that Madrona had demanded for 5,000 pesos weekly as protection money.
Nagkandak agad ng operation yung IMEG regarding dun sa sumbong nila na in-extortan sila. Didemand daw yung 13 Major Madrona ng protection money ng KTV bar nila para hindi sila i-raid ng CIDU 6.
According to police, Madrona raided the KTV bar on February 8. He then arrested the bar manager, workers, and Japanese clients. But Madrona released them immediately after asking for weekly protection money.
Bukod dun sa hinihingi nila na na protection money, nagdemand din ng pang-personal na pangangailangan niya. For example, yung para sa travel expenses niya, hotel accommodation.
Cunanan further said that Madrona had previous cases of arbitrary detention, grave coercion, and physical injury after he mauled an OFW in March 2017 in Quezon City due to a traffic altercation. He was later relieved from his post as Police Chief Inspector and was reassigned to the PNP Headquarters Support Service in Camp Crame before being assigned as Bacolod CIDG Chief a month ago. De La Cruz and Madrona are now facing robbery extortion charges. The arrested Bacolod CIDG chief may also face an administrative case of grave misconduct. Vincent Arboleda, UNTV News and Rescue.
President Rodrigo Duterte formally prohibits vaping in public places or conveyances or transportation through Executive Order Number 106. Smoking or vaping will only be allowed in an open space or separate area with proper ventilation. Persons below 21 years of age are not allowed to sell, distribute, or purchase tobacco products or electronic cigarettes. The manufacture, distribution, marketing, or sale of unregistered or adulterated electronic nicotine delivery systems, heated tobacco products, and other novel tobacco products are also prohibited. The executive order aims to address the serious and irreversible threat to public health, prevent the initiation of non-smokers and the youth, and minimize health risks to both users and non-smokers exposed to emission. Meanwhile, the results of the Philippine National Police's adjudication process on cops included in the narco list will soon land on President Rodrigo Duterte's table. Mirasol Abugadil will tell us why.
The Philippine National Police confirms they have only 4 days left to finish the adjudication process on the policemen included in the President's narco list. And on March 5, the adjudication board will submit the results to President Rodrigo Duterte. The chief executive will be the one to delist the police officers who are not involved in illegal drugs trade. PNP spokesperson Police Brigadier General Bernard Banac says they have different sources of information on the alleged narco cops. Those sources include messages received through the PNP hotlines, letters, media personnel, concerned civic groups, religious organizations, and the PNP intelligence group. Once the PNP receives such information, the intelligence group will verify it by talking to the sources, gathering evidence, and speaking with barangay officials and police officers close to the alleged narco cops. With enough evidence, a name is placed on the narco list. The adjudication process takes place for the alleged narco cops to explain their side. The result of the investigation is then submitted to President Duterte.
Ito yung formal na process na ginagawa natin para finally ay ma-adjudicate na. Kasi mahabang panahon na rin na umano ay napapabilang kanilang pangalan sa watch list. Pero hindi talaga natin nabigyan pa ng finality, ng clearance. Kapag this time, talagang with finality, sasabihin na natin na matagal na ang issue yan at paninira na lamang yan.
Among those included on the list is Police Lieutenant Colonel Jovi Espinido. But he has been acquitted by Police Regional Office 6 Chief Police Brigadier General Rene Pamuspusan from the issue. Banac says Espinido still needs to undergo the national adjudication process.
Ang naging pahayag ng ating butihing Regional Director ng PRO6, si Police Brigadier General Rene Pamuspusan, ay patungkol lamang sa kanyang area of jurisdiction, which is Region 6. Kinakailangan na magkaroon ng adjudication on a national level para naman to be fair to all at wala tayong ma-miss out ng mga information.
But aside from the narco list issue, Espinido is facing another investigation for talking to media about his inclusion in the narco list.
Sa case ni Colonel Espinido, dahil nagkaroon nga siya ng mga pahayag sa atin sa media, ay maaaring may mga kinakailangan na ipaliwanag siya. So, hindi pa tapos ang prosesong yun. Hiningan na siya ng opisyal na paliwanag ng ating Region 6 at iba naman ang kaso na yun. Hiwalay.
The PNP has earlier warned that policemen who fabricated stories against their fellow officers to link them to illegal drugs will be charged administratively and may be dismissed from the service. Mirasol Abugadil, UNTV, News and Rescue.
The Department of Health assures that the Philippine government is adequately prepared once the World Health Organization declares a pandemic of the coronavirus disease. Meanwhile, the Interagency Task Force for the Management of Emerging Infectious Disease has no decision yet on repatriating Filipinos in Macau and South Korea. Aiko Miguel explains why.
The Philippines is among the 9 countries which the World Health Organization reports to have no new COVID-19 cases in more than 2 weeks. However, the Health Department is well aware this is not a reason for the Philippine government to be complacent. Code Blue Alert is implemented in all government hospitals nationwide to manage suspected cases of COVID-19. The Interagency Task Force for the Management of Emerging Infectious Disease, or IATF-EID, is also not discounting the possibility of community or local transmission in the country. The DOH stands firm that the Philippine government is adequately prepared in case the World Health Organization declares a pandemic. This despite criticisms against the Health Department's implementation of protocols.
I don't think the threshold has been reached to say that a pandemic is nearly happening, because I don't think it should even be entertained at this point. We have a decreasing PUIs, only 30, an increasing number of negatives, and hopefully that trend continues. So far, the way it is, our preparedness, readiness are adequate.
According to the DOH, there is a standard international protocol classified in different levels which a country follows when a pandemic is declared. A level of this include incident planning and case management for a country's proper response when COVID-19 cases multiply, and the assurance that the health workers or medical workers in the country are enough to attend and treat patients. Though there are many Filipino health workers abroad, health workers in the Philippines are on alert once Code Red Alert is declared and when a pandemic is announced. The Department of Trade and Industry has given its word to the DOH it will supply masks weekly.
Thus, we have the commitment by the DTI that the manufacturing company in Bataan Export Processing Zone has committed 200,000 masks a week for the DOH.
With the rise of COVID-19 cases in different parts of the world daily, OFWs in Macau and South Korea have signified their intention to be repatriated, but the IATF has yet to plan the repatriation thoroughly. Health officials explain the situation of OFWs in Macau and Sokor are different from that of the repatriates from One City, China, and from the MV Diamond Princess cruise ship. Once repatriated, they won't need to undergo quarantine, health officials say.
And they show no symptoms, they will undergo home quarantine. So they will just be persons under monitoring and in home quarantine.
If and when we will be bringing them home from Macau, from South Korea, hindi po ganitong sitwasyon ang pinanggagalingan nila. Kaya po ngayon, pag dumating sila dito, kung sakasakali, we will just consider them as person under monitoring and then home-based quarantine, but this would be monitored strictly as well.
Meanwhile, of the 10 Filipinos from the Diamond Princess cruise ship who tested positive for COVID-19, 8 flew back to the Philippines yesterday. The other one is in Singapore and the other is left in Japan. Meanwhile, to prevent the risk of contracting COVID-19, the DOH discourages the public to go to the nationwide mall sale this weekend. Aiko Miguel, UNTV News and Rescue, Manila.
The entry to and exit from the Athletes Village in New Clark City, Tarlac, are strictly controlled to prevent the possible spread of COVID-19. But the Health Department has yet to recommend building its own isolation facility within the sports hub. Asher Kadapan Jr. details why.
Experts believe that restricting travel and locking down communities may help in fighting the spread of COVID-19. Communities where individuals are possibly infected with the disease are quarantined to contain the virus. But for the repatriated Filipinos from Japan, who are now under the 14-day quarantine in Athletes Village in New Clark City, individuals that will show symptoms of the disease will have to be transported out of the sports hub. In such case, the Department of Health will refer the patients to hospitals where they can be admitted in a DOH isolation room. However, the transport of patients and their exposure to other people increase the risk of local transmission. But according to Health Secretary Francisco Duque III, setting up an isolation facility just within the New Clark City has not been recommended as of yet. The DOH still prefers to bring the patients to a hospital where equipment and conducive facilities are ready for treatment of patients.
Remember, the NCC has a polyclinic, but if we put them there, what for? When we can already bring them straight to the isolation rooms of our facilities.
The DOH assures that ambulances are on standby 24/7 for the prompt transport of anyone who will show symptoms among those under quarantine to corresponding medical facilities. Asher Cadapan Jr., UNTV News and Rescue, City of Manila.
A couple in their 60s received visitors this week inside their modest home in Zamboanga City. But instead of them offering a meal to their guests, what happened was the other way around. Nina Armilio will tell us why.
For richer or for poorer, this is one of the vows a husband and a wife exchange. I want to grow old with you, is what they say. Just like this old couple in Barangay Tumaga, Zamboanga City. After 48 years of being together, Rogelio and Anita Bormilado's love for each other keeps growing stronger. Although a modest house with no electricity or water supply and measly earnings are all they've got, they are content with a simple life. After 40 years of being a laundry maid, Anita's body has gone weaker, so Rogelio is left as the only breadwinner. At 66 years old, he works as a caretaker of an apartment nearby. The couple also scavenges for plastic bottles and sells them to augment for their daily needs. But there are times when there is not enough to sustain their necessities. So volunteers from Members Church of God International in Zamboanga City surprised the Bormilados. The group gave the couple grocery items and some amount of cash. Only the two are left in their home, as their 4 children each have their own families. Anita and Rogelio say they will continue to live a simple life, flavored with love and care, and faith in God above all.
Wala na nakikasugal, wala naman. Ngayon, kayo asa na mo kalulong ka.
Nina Armilio, UNTV News and Rescue.
Y News continues. South Korea now has the second most coronavirus cases in the world, behind China. Following the increase in confirmed cases, the K-pop group BTS has canceled a string of concerts planned in the country. Amiel Pascual reports.
Residents queued in front of a department store in Seoul on Friday to buy face masks after a shortage of masks hit the country amid rising coronavirus cases. South Korea has limited the export of face masks to a minimum of 10% of total production and distributed masks to public retailers, including post offices and chemists, according to the government. Outside of the Seoul department store, which was allocated 170,000 face masks, hundreds of people were seen waiting in line before the store opened Friday morning. Each person is allowed to buy maximum 5 face masks.
We have about 20 face masks at home, but I was worried if this virus war continues for a long time. And I have children, so I am more worried. I came here to buy more face masks with my daughter.
South Korea reported 256 new coronavirus cases on Friday, bringing the total number of infected in the country to 2,022. The Korea Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, or KCDC, said. Of the new cases, 182 were in the southeastern city of Daegu, the location of a church at the center of South Korea's outbreak, the KCDC said in a statement. The death toll from the virus to the 13, unchanged from the day earlier. The outbreak has prompted South Korean boy band BTS to cancel its scheduled April concerts in Seoul, according to its music label Big Hit Entertainment. BTS had scheduled a map of the Seoul Tour for April 11, 12, 18, and 19 at Seoul's Olympic Stadium.
사이즈가 너무 작아서 벗고 왔어.
Korean Airlines on Friday said it will measure temperatures of all passengers for flights to the U.S. and refuse passengers whose temperature exceeds 37.5 degrees Celsius. The move comes after a cabin crew member tested positive for coronavirus on Tuesday, prompting the firm to shut its office near Incheon International Airport, where the crew briefing room was located. Amiel Pascual, UNTV News and Rescue, South Korea.
Hong Kong authorities said on Friday they quarantined a pet dog of a coronavirus patient after its nasal and oral samples tested weak positive for the virus, though they added they did not yet have evidence that it can be transmitted to pets. The dog did not have any symptoms. The Agriculture, Fisheries and Conservation Department said it will conduct further tests to confirm if the dog had been infected with the virus or if the samples were only the result of environmental contamination. The dog will be put under quarantine for 2 weeks. And for the news abroad, one of Hong Kong's most high-profile entrepreneurs, the pro-democracy tycoon Jimmy Lai, has been arrested for illegal assembly and intimidation. The founder of newspaper Apple Daily is accused of being involved in a banned anti-government march on the 31st of August. The alleged intimidation was against a journalist in 2017. Apple Daily is frequently critical of Hong Kong and Chinese leadership. 2 other pro-democracy figures were also arrested on Friday morning. Politicians Lee Chuk-yan and Yong Sum were detained on suspicion of illegal assembly on the 31st of August. Countries in East Africa are racing against time to prevent new swarms of locusts, wreaking havoc with crops and livelihoods after the worst infestation in generations. Meanwhile, an airstrike by government forces in Syria's northwest Idlib region killed at least 33 Turkish soldiers in a bid to retake the province from rebels backed by Turkish soldiers. Jovic Bermas details this report.
In Syria, at least 33 Turkish soldiers have been killed in an airstrike carried out by Syrian government forces, officials in Turkey say. Thursday night's attack in Idlib marks a serious escalation in the direct conflict between Turkish and Russia-backed Syrian forces. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has held an emergency security meeting in Ankara, and discussions have been held by phone with NATO Secretary General and America's National Security Advisor. The airstrike came after a Russian delegation spent 2 days in Ankara for talks with Turkish officials on the situation in Idlib, where a Syrian government offensive has sent hundreds of thousands of civilians fleeing towards the Turkish border. In India, violent clashes and acts of arson swept parts New Delhi on Thursday in the worst sectarian riots the Indian capital has seen in decades. Many suffered gunshot wounds, while arson, looting and stone throwing have also taken place. Delhi police have put the death count at 32. At the heart of the unrest is a citizenship law which makes it easier for non-Muslims from some neighboring Muslim-dominated countries to gain Indian citizenship. Critics say the law is biased against Muslims and undermines India's secular constitution. In Africa, locusts have reached the fertile Rift Valley farmland and stripped grazing grounds in Kenya and Somalia. Swarms can travel up to 150 kilometers a day and contain between 40 to 80 million locusts per square kilometer. The UN Food and Agriculture Organization, or FAO, has warned if left unchecked, the number of locusts in East Africa could explode 400-fold by June. That would devastate harvests in a region with more than 19 million hungry people. The impact so far on agriculture, which generates about a third of East Africa's economic output, is unknown, but FAO is using satellite images to assess the damage. Jovic Bermas, UNTV News and Rescue.
Zoo officials in Colombia are racing against time to save a lion who was once saved from his abusive circus owners. Their move to reunite him with his human mother. Mirasol Abogadil will tell us why.
In a bid to save its life, an emaciated lion in Colombia was transported on Thursday to an area closer to its mother. Jupiter's mother is a woman named Ana Julia Torres. Jupiter was rescued at a young age from a circus after a life of abuse. Following his rescue, Jupiter was dubbed the Kissing Lion after a video of him hugging his caretaker Ana Julia Torres went viral in 2011. But in 2019, authorities removed Jupiter from Torres' care over her reported lack of proper documentation to keep the lion. According to Ana, it was terrible. It's like a 19-year-old son who was taken away from her. She had seen him grow as a child, as a young lion, to adulthood, and to be separated when he turned 19. Now, in 2020, Jupiter is back in the spotlight, but for the wrong reasons. A video emerged of the lion emaciated and unable to walk at his animal enclosure in the department of Cordoba. Following outrage at home and abroad, animal lovers and his rescuer mobilized to get Jupiter removed from the facility and transported to a new home closer to his rescuer. He will now receive treatment in Cali Zoo, where vets will work around the clock to get Jupiter back to full health. And close by will be Torres, looking to provide a mother's love as he recovers.
Su mamá. Sí, mi amor. Aquí no que lo acaricie. Aquí está su mamá. Sí, mi amor. Sí, sí.
Todo lo posible por recuperarlo de manera apropiada.
We will do everything possible for his recovery in the correct way given the levels of malnutrition and anemia that he has. What we are doing today for this king of the jungle is to say that all sentient lives should be protected and looked after, especially a wild animal that shouldn't be caged.
The hope now for Jupiter is that this king of the jungle will once again return to his former glory. Mirasol Abgadil, UNTV, News and Rescue.
We sometimes do silly things privately where no one can see us. But what if 1, you did something funny, 2, you are unaware it's happening, and 3, you can be seen all over the world? Something just like that happened to an American reporter. In the end, his viewers thank him for a hilarious weather report. Nina Armilio tells us why.
Using camera filters on smartphones has been a craze. You can make yourself look funny, more adorable, or scary when taking selfies or when talking to a friend through a video call. But what if you are in a very important online conference meeting, or you are a reporter bringing news live and you are unaware you activated your camera filters? Just like Justin Hinton, a WLOS News 13 reporter in North Carolina, United States. He was reporting the weather condition that snowy day via Facebook Live.
And this is really the first legitimate snowfall we've seen this season.
Unaware, he activated the face filters before stepping in front of the camera to describe the weather in Madison County. And this happened.
Warning people to be careful with the snowfall because it really is affecting the entire state. So something to keep in mind. I know folks who live in Western North Carolina, we are familiar with the snow.
Yes, that definitely happened. But that brilliant accident entertained Hinton's weather update viewers. Despite the snowy weather, they laughed out loud. What with a whole new different look of a weather report. Luckily for Hinton, his bosses, co-workers, and friends did not get angry, but instead loved it too. Many say it's totally hilarious. Others say it's golden. One of the viewers even thanked Hinton, saying she has not laughed that hard for a while, and she needed that laughter. Hinton thanks the viewers for being entertained. His reminder, don't forget to smile and to laugh.
It's been really the first significant snow that we've had to be safe if you do have to go somewhere on the roads, and make sure you're giving yourself
Nina Armilio, UNTV, News and Rescue.
That is in front of you. So again, the snow.
The UNTV Cup crowd awaits the unfolding of unprecedented feats in the league in this season's finals. Will the final series reveal a rookie team to become a champion or a back-to-back title holder? Bernardadis reports.
Expect an action-packed battle as the Armed Forces of the Philippines Cavaliers and the Department of Environment and Natural Resources Warriors collide this Sunday at 5 in the afternoon at Paco Arena in Manila City. As the best-of-3 series of UNTV Cup Season 8 finals kick off, DNR Warriors promised to surprise the defending champion after losing to the Soldier Hoopsters in the eliminations.
Nakita namin kung ano yung weakness nila doon sa larong yun. Yung gagawin naming technique at plays, sigurado mabibigla sila.
So yun ang pagtatrabahuan namin, kung paano makontrol yung game, paano ma-minimize yung pag-set nila ng play. Kasi habang nakaset sila ng play, maganda talaga yung resulta.
The OUTBREAK Cavaliers, on the other hand, has intensified its preparation to defend the championship title from the rookie team, expecting to achieve an unprecedented feat of a back-to-back championship.
Dapat merong kaming circuit workout, yung nag-gym kami, lahat. Strength and conditioning. Yun yung laging na-emphasize ko every time we start the practice. After nun, saka ko ipapasok yung program namin sa practice.
Yung preparation namin is more on stopping yung kanilang mga players na nag-contribute na mas malaking puntos like sila Lansang, sila Rivera, yung Bangal.
4 million pesos is at stake for the champion, while 2 million pesos awaits the runner-up team. Before the much-awaited Game 1 of the League Season 8 Finals, Judiciary Magis and NHA Builders will battle for the third place, which will earn the winning team 1 million pesos. The losing team to finish the season in fourth place will bring $500,000 pesos for its beneficiaries. Meanwhile, 8 UNTV Cup teams that failed to reach the semifinals will clash in the single round-robin 3x3 basketball game that will start this Sunday. Meanwhile, 8 UNTV Cup teams that failed to reach the semifinals will clash in the single round-robin 3x3 basketball game that will start this Sunday. The 4 winning teams will duel in a knockout Game 2 for the championship on March 9, the same day of the finals Game 2 between AAP and DNR at the Big Dome. Prizes await the team that will succeed in the 3x3 basketball game and its chosen beneficiaries. Bernardadis, UNTV News and Rescue.
And those are the reasons behind the news. And before we close, we will recap with today's significant soundbites. I am William Theo.
And I'm Angelo Castro III. Because we need to know, we will always ask why. Good evening.
This virus has pandemic potential. This is not a time for fear. This is a time for taking action now to prevent infections and save lives now.
What the market is saying is like, we don't know. And the situation is absolutely fluid.
We have a decreasing PUIs, only 30, an increasing number of negatives, and hopefully that trend continues. So far, the way it is, our preparedness, readiness are adequate. In other words, hindi naman lahat sila na-expose at the same time. May na-expose on day 1, okay? May na-expose on day 2, may na-expose on day 3, 4, hanggang 14 days. Diba, naandun sila. So, ang tawag ko din sliding exposure. So, pwede, sa una, negative, tapos eventually naging positive.
Pag-uusapan po yung redress of their grievances. No? Hindi natin maalis nga naman na na-expose po sila doon sa environment na yun, which is probably against their will. Yung iba sa kanila gusto na talaga umuwi. Kaya lang because of the directive coming from the Japanese government, hindi nila magawang umalis. Tsaka siyempre baka considered na abandonment ng kanilang trabaho yun.